What's up, everyone? Welcome back to episode 2 of me providing my predictions, recaps, and forecasts of what I think may happen this year in the UFC/MMA. Starting off, I kind of want to introduce you guys to how I'm going to organize this show. There's going to be 5 different segments, starting off with number 1, UFC rating and review for UFC 311. Following up by number 2 will be the UFC prelim kind of rating and kind of how I thought the prelims were, and what happened during the prelims that potentially made a big impact or no impact at all. Number 3 will be the main card run through. Now this is really a deep dive into who won in the main card and how does that affect moving forward the respective division, whatever that may be. Number 4 will be the main card world championship. Main card world championship is basically going to be whoever won in the main card for a UFC event. It would have to be like a UFC 311, UFC 312, no fight nights. I will tally up the scores, and then we'll go out throughout the year and see how that changes and see how that works out. I'll do a big deep dive into how that is going to look like later on in this video, so please stay tuned for that. And number 5 will be my final fight forecast on what I think or the next upcoming fights can be and what I'd like to see, and you can let me know if you'd like to see them as well. I think it's going to be a really good... All right, starting off with segment 1. My overall rating for UFC 311. I thought it was a really good showing. I thought it was a really good show for everyone. I think all the fighters put on a great performance, great show, very professional. I think for the most part, any drama that led up to any of the fights kind of delivered on that aspect. We kind of saw that fire from Renato Moicano taking on that fight on last notice. There was a fire within those less than 24 hours. He was pumped. He was ready to fight. Didn't go his way, obviously. Islam is just too good and too dominant when it comes to fighting. So it was a really good showing for everyone. I thought it was really great. Merab showing once again his engine, why he's so durable and essentially has an endless stamina. So really good showing for him. I thought it was a really good card overall. If I had to rate it right off the bat, I'd have to go 8 out of 10. I think it was a really, really solid card through and through. I don't know. Let me know what you think about it. All right, jumping into segment number 2, the UFC prelim walkthrough. Run through of who I thought would win and who I thought could potentially shake up the division. I set my predictions before the card. Some of the fights went my way, some of them didn't. That's just how it goes, right? A lot of these predictions, I did want to make of note, a lot of these predictions are some way in a way biased because I'm kind of stating that I want this fighter to win, even though I may think he may not have a good chance at it, right? But I still believe that fighter could win by sheer will, motivation, or anything that may be going on in that fighter's life. Some of these fighters I follow closely. Some of these fighters, I'm just a big fan of their fighting style. So a lot of these predictions aren't necessarily something where I'm making a big deep dive in analytics of like saying, okay, this fighter will win because he can outstrike him, right? Some of these predictions are just, hey, they're just my takes, right? Take them how you want them. So let's do a run through of the prelims. This is a run through of the fight pass and the prelims. So of the fighters that I predicted, whether they were going to win or whether they're going to lose. I will say that I went 3 for 8 this time, so a little less than 50%. Not my best predictions, but I'm really happy with them because either way, the people that did win, the fighters that did win ended up, making a notable win, a notable impact in that card. So really happy about that. Really happy that Tagir got that win over Clayton. I did have Clayton Carpenter winning that fight. Maybe a little bit of bias there, but congratulations to Tagir. Bernardo Sopaj versus Ricky Turcios. Did have Ricky. Bernardo won. Congratulations to Bernardo. Then we have Rinya Nakamura and then Muin Gafurov. I believe I did have Muin Gafurov, and I'm happy for his win as well. Aileen Perez continues to win, continues to rack up those wins. So I'm curious to see who she'll fight next. I know there's a little bit of drama there with Tracy Cortez, so we'll see if they end up fighting and see if that ends up coming out. I think that's the fight to make for her. If you've kind of been following her, that's kind of what we've been seeing, right? The confrontation between her and Tracy. I think that'd be a good fight. I think it's a pretty evenly matched bout. So curious to see how that pans out, but really happy for her getting that win. I did have Carol Rosa beating her, so there you go. I was wrong again. Again, I was 3 for 8, not the best prediction score. But we move on. We move on to the early prelims. Grant Dawson did win, and I did have him winning, so big ups to him. Then we got Billy Elikana versus Bogdan Guskov. This is another one where I was saying that Bogdan has really, there's no real reason for him not to win this fight. I mean, he's kind of gaining momentum and trying to get himself in the top 10. You can't lose to an unranked fighter, and sure enough, he went out there, mission accomplished. So big congrats to him. Moving on to next one, Zachary's Asamet Bekov. Crazy knockout. So really happy for Asamet Bekov. I know that, I'm sure, seeing him in the ring very riled up, very energized after that knockout, I'm really happy for him because I know he's excited of what's to come just based off of that performance, right? Really good showing for him, really good aggressive pace. So really happy for him to see. I'm really curious to see how he moves on from here. The middleweight is another exciting division and a very stacked division, so we'll see how that goes. And then Payne Talbot and Raoni Barcelos. So big ups to Raoni, shutting down all that hype. I think that's a really good aspect of this sport. Once you shut down that hype, it's a big downer on a lot of fans that, were kind of on that hype train, and it's really exciting to see just kind of everyone just kind of like deflate from all the commotion of, okay, this fighter's it, right? This fighter's got that something different. And then seeing that all just tumble down and essentially disappear is really cool. It's really exciting because they're all ruined behind this one guy, and then another guy just ruins it. So I really like that about the UFC as well. And Raoni Barcelos did just that, exactly what he needed to do, right? Kind of shut down that hype train and show, hey, this is a sport where experience and being a veteran does take a big part in it. So big congrats to him. Jumping into segment number 3, the main card walkthrough. Yes, we had a really good main card, in my opinion, really evenly matched main card where either fighter could win. It was anyone's night. And Kevin Holland and Reinier de Ridder kind of started that pattern and that theme of the night. It was really anyone's fight. Kevin Holland or Reinier de Ridder could have came out with the win. In the end, it was Reinier de Ridder. And even though it was round 1, we were kind of hoping that Kevin Holland would put up bigger of a fight. And kind of when I talked about this fight before it, kind of said it was really up to Kevin Holland who he was going to be stepping into that octagon, right? He is enjoying the ride. He's enjoying being a UFC fighter. I kind of like what I said before. I just don't think his eye is on the prize. I don't think his eye is on being champion. It's just enjoying that ride. And who knows? Maybe that does factor in when you're trying to, rack up a win streak, or it maybe doesn't. But right now, it's not really working in his favor, right? Because if you keep on losing, you keep on getting sent down, and eventually you run the risk of being cut, right? If you don't get on a win streak, if you don't build excitement, I think you run that risk. So with Kevin Holland, what he has going for him is his character, who he is in the UFC, his footprint within that division. I think it plays a big part in why he is getting scheduled fights and he is continuing to be on the main card. So I am happy for him on that aspect because I am a fan of Kevin Holland. I do just worry if he doesn't rack up wins, what does the UFC have in store for him? Nonetheless, big congratulations to Reinier de Ridder. He did pick up a notable win, a big win for his career. So I'm really excited to see how this works out for him and who he chooses to end up fight. I know there's fights out there. I know I'm sure he's the type of guy that, hey, I'll fight whoever it is in the top 5, top 10. He's got that look about him. So I'm really excited to see how that works out. Jumping into the next fight, we have Jailton Almeida and Sergey Spivak. Again, I did have Jailton Almeida winning, so I'm really happy that did pan out in the way that I thought it would, and it's the best thing for the division in my opinion. It adds somebody new, and hopefully we get to see him fight a top contender, a top 5, top 10 ranked fighter again. Maybe rack up some wins and potentially fight Aspinall. I know everyone wants to see Aspinall Jones, but to me it's too far-fetched and it's not something to rely on in the moment. So I am really happy about that. Another reason why I thought this was a great card. And also, Jailton Almeida wins performance of the night. You can't argue with the fact that he has that potential. He has that going for him. So I'm really excited to see how that pans out, and how that plays out. So big ups to Jailton Almeida. Following, we have Yuri Prohaska and Jamal Hill. Again, I did have Yuri winning before that. So the Yuri we're seeing, if it's not fighting Alex Pereira, it's a Yuri that can beat anyone. Anyone in the division, I think Yuri can beat. And we kind of saw that with Jamal Hill, right? I do think Yuri was running on a higher gear than Jamal. I think Yuri's pace was too much for Jamal. Jamal did have some, notable jabs that kind of kept the distance and kind of kept Yuri second guessing. So that was really good to see from Jamal. A very high IQ play from him. A lot, I saw a lot of good moments in there from Jamal Hill, but in the end, I did think Yuri was going to be too much. I still think the injury was a factor, right? I believe it was Chris Weidman, and I touched on it a little bit, that after Jamal Hill's Achilles injury, it has been a different Jamal. It hasn't been the Jamal before the injury, and I still run on the notion that has taken an effect on him, and that it has played a major part into his performances, right? Not to say that the worst performances, but they're not the performances that we're used to seeing. So with Yuri winning this, it kind of propels him again into fighting, Alex Pereira, and it is a tough call out for him, but in the end, it's kind of the only call out that you can kind of make when you're putting on performances that Yuri is putting on, right? So there is that, and just to touch on it a little bit, in that division, we have Alex Pereira fighting Magomed Ankalaev. So with that fight coming up, however that pans out, that'll definitely shake up the division, right? Like, if Pereira loses, then Ankalaev is now defending that belt and potentially fighting against Yuri again, and then Pereira goes up to heavyweight. However that may pan out, there's still motion in the division, so I'm really excited to see how that works out. And to my favorite fight, the fight of the night, awarded rightfully so in my opinion, Merab versus Umar. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I'm glad that fight went the distance, right? I'm glad there was no stoppage there. We got to see everything we wanted to see, every possible outcome. Every shot was shot, every shot was stuffed, whatever it was. So it was really good. It was a really good fight. If you watched it, you really enjoyed it. Leading up to the fight, there was a lot of drama, a lot of, kind of talking mess back and forth. So getting to see them go at it each round was amazing. I know that Umar broke his hand during the fight, and apparently it's been said that he punched the wrong side of Merab's head. So that right there in itself kind of shows you how durable Merab is, and how strong he is, right? Because to punch his head in a way where you break your hand is kind of crazy. And you've seen the Merab's video where he's jumping into an ice frozen lake, splitting him open. So he is the definition of durability, but he's also always getting hurt. And to add to that, he had that injury to his shin leading up to that fight, that cut that potentially was infected leading up into the fight, getting past the commission and still making that fight crazy on Merab's part. A lot of these fighters fight with injuries coming in, and a lot of these fighters leave the fight with a bunch of injuries, and that was kind of one of these fights where they both left injured and a little hurt. So we'll see how Umar recovers. Hopefully Umar makes a quick recovery and gets into some fights in the top 5. There's fights for him, in my opinion, fights that can be made. So we'll see how that pans out. But a really good fight, a lot of drama leading up to it. Of note, I did want to say how happy I was to see John Wood and Longo in the corner. Just a little background there. They're both head coaches cornering one UFC fighter, and you don't really see that often. And I think that says a lot about John Wood and Longo, where they can kind of put essentially their expertise aside and just focus on the fighter, focus on that fight, and work together. I think that was really good on their part, and that just goes to show the team that Merab has. Aljo, Longo, Iquinta, all those guys. It looks like a really solid team. And it looks like they have a very open line of communication between each other, so they make these things work. 2 head coaches working together for a fighter. That's really nice to see. Even though we have that whole thing with Merab's teammate training with Umar leading up to the fight, and also kind of sharing essentially film to Umar about Merab. So there's that crazy aspect. So I'm really glad to see that John Wood is not all for that, right? John Wood said, that's not how we roll, that's not how our team is supposed to be, right? If you're either in the team or you're out of the team. And, boxing, it's the same thing, right? You can't have film on another guy leading up to a fight in a training camp. And in the MMA, it's kind of a little bit different, and it is kind of crazy that Merab is okay with, I believe his name is Makhachev, just, kind of essentially sharing film with Umar. Merab, I don't think he holds it against him, so that also says a lot about Merab. He's confident in his ability, confident in who he is. He's like, hey, if you want to do it, man, we're still friends. And so whatever it is, but I am glad that John Wood kind of stood up to that and said, hey, this is a no-go. And I really like to see that because, you got to be loyal in this game, and you got to be loyal in kind of who you're building up, right? Because John Wood is responsible in a sense for Merab's success. So you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot there. So I'm really happy that John Wood has done that, and potentially could be, the coach of the year, in my opinion. I'm going to go ahead and say that John Wood could potentially be the coach of the year. Let's talk about it. Oh, and another thing, big congratulations to Merab on landing the record for all-time takedowns in the UFC. Great job, Merab. Again, another reason I really enjoyed the fight, just showing once again how durable and how confident he has proven to be in the octagon. All right, and Islam's win. Yeah, Islam won convincingly. There was no doubt left in anyone's mind that Islam is the true fighter, the true lightweight champion. There's no doubt in anyone's mind that Islam is the true lightweight champion. I don't know where they go from here right now. I have no idea who he'll fight next. You want to say Charles, but we've kind of seen that already. Dana doesn't want to see Arman, so we have that. So that one is something where I have to take a bigger deep dive in what happens. But I'm glad for Islam because he'll get a much-needed break, get to relax a little bit, and kind of reconvene with his team back in Russia and kind of just build each other back up, because everyone had a fight. Umar had a fight, Islam had a fight, and Usman had a fight. They all had a fight within the past 2 weeks. So I'm glad to see that now that the fight's past them, and then they can kind of get together and come up with a new game plan. So I'm excited to see how that pans out. But there's really not much to say about that fight. Levels above it. Islam was levels above Renato, and there was just no debate there. And now for segment 4, the main card World Championships. Now this is a new segment that I'm coming up with, and it'll be really exciting to see after every pay-per-view card how it pans out and how those wins impact the next card, right? Because we're gonna be counting each win accordingly. So if you were fighting in the main card, for example, we have Jamal Hill in the main card. If he were to rack up a win, he would rack up 1 point, essentially like how you would in the Olympics, for Team USA. I know the UFC somewhat has that aspect of countries within the sport, but now I'll be counting them on the side on my own. I will not be counting fight nights, strictly pay-per-views, see how it works out, see if my point system kind of works out in the way that I think it will. So if you fight in the main card, no title bout, no title on the line, no interim title, then your win will be counted as 1 point. Now, if you're fighting for an interim belt, your win will be counted as 1.5 points. Now, if you're fighting for a title unification bout or a new title, or defending your title, the points will be counted as 2 points. So we'll see how this works out. I'm curious to see how this will work out by the time we hit July. I think it'll work out favorably, and we'll get to see, what country's at the top. So without further ado, let's tally up those points and see how that looks, right? So jumping into the first card, we have Kevin Holland versus Reinier de Ridder. There you go. That's a point for the Netherlands. So big thank you to Reinier de Ridder. You got 1 point for the Netherlands. Going into the next one, we have Jailton Almeida versus Sergey Spivak. So Brazil gets another point because of Jailton's win. Czechia gets 1 point thanks to Yuri. Georgia gets 2 points thanks to Merab's defending the bantamweight belt. Regains the belt, keeps it essentially because he essentially lost it, right? In that fight, you're not going home with the belt if you don't win, right? So in a way, it's you lost the belt leading up to the fight if you don't perform the way that you do. So you get those 2 points. Merab racks up 2 points for Georgia. and then Islam 2 points for Russia. So the leaderboard at the moment, we have Russia with 2 points, Georgia with 2 points, Czechia with 1, Brazil with 1, and Netherlands with 1. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that pans out as the pay-per-views fly by. And yeah, let's see how this segment works. It'll be really exciting and really fun. And we'll see. Stay tuned because I have other plans for that as well. Really excited about this segment. And to finish off segment 5, the fight forecast. Now, I will be recapping the main card only. I didn't really see anything in the fight night or the prelims that kind of shaked up the division way too much to where I kind of feel that there'll be a next fight up and coming for, let's say, to crack into the top 15 or anything like that. The only one that I would say was Aileen Perez versus Tracy Cortez. I think there's enough there to make that fight, so I would like to see that one. That's about it for Peyton Talbot. It's kind of back to the drawing board, seeing who else we fight. I don't think he gets anyone in the top 15, so we have that, right? So jumping straight into the main card, we have Reiner de Ridder. Reiner de Ridder pulled off a notable win, so I think he fights Shara Magomedov. I think that's the fight to make. I think he has enough to fight him. We have, Shara being a striker. It'll be interesting to see him against Reiner de Ridder, and I think that'll be a good fight to make. So I go that. Jailton Almeida pulling off a win. I think he should fight Volkov. I think that'd be a really good matchup. I think that would work. I know Curtis Blades and Pavlovich are scheduled to fight, so no real way to make a fight there. But Volkov is coming off of a loss, and I know Jailton is coming off of a win. There's that aspect to it. So it's either Jailton's good enough or he's not, and I think that's a really good test for him against Volkov. So I go Jailton versus Volkov. I say Yuri waits. Yuri has to wait. There's really nothing else for him to do but see how it pans out with Magomed and Alex Pereira. Once they figure out that winner, I think it's fair to say that Yuri fights the winner of those two. Now, he has fought Pereira, and I know that's a tough matchup, but Yuri is in that. I think Yuri is in his right division, in his rightful place, and I think that division is for him. And I think if he just keeps chomping at the bit, I think he could eventually be champion once again. Again, that is a big thing to say, especially if Alex Pereira is champion in that division. So there is that aspect, but I do think Pereira does move up to heavyweight. I do think the only fight to make, and I will stand by this, is Pereira versus Jones. Jones is not taking anyone else. I stand by that. Pereira's moving up. He beats Ankalaev. He is fighting John Jones. And the last one, we have Merab versus Sean O'Malley. That's who I got. That's what I think. I think Merab fights him. I think that's a very good rematch. We've been seeing Sugar Sean O'Malley kind of lock in, as so he says, right? He's getting off the social media, not doing much interviews, not doing many shows. When you see that from Sugar Sean O'Malley, you hope to think that he's going to bring something different to the table than what he did at the Sphere. A lot of people are saying that wasn't Sean O'Malley, that wasn't the fighter that we know. Who's to say that was or wasn't? I don't know. I do really think Merab is that good, and he kind of did expose that side of Sugar Sean O'Malley, but there is that championship caliber that O'Malley does bring to the table, right? That level of striking that essentially is unmatched in that division. When you're striking against O'Malley, I really don't think there's a better striker in that division when it comes to it. He has a length, he has a speed, he has that it factor when it comes to knocking people out. So I think Sugar Sean O'Malley has a chance. It's just a matter of fact who we see stepping into that octagon against Merab. I think if Sugar Sean O'Malley uses his length, uses his jab, uses the crosses, and makes it more of a striking fight, I think he has a better chance. I think his striking is very well, and Merab's team is aware of that, right? John Wood knows that if Sugar Sean O'Malley brings his striking and makes it a striking fight, it's really anyone's game. So we'll see how that works out. I'd like to see that rematch. And again, I'd like to see Merab go on his title defense tour. That's what I'm really excited for. We saw that with Kamaru Usman, essentially lapping everyone in the division. I think that's a really good way to go about things, just because once you lap everyone, there's like, hey, move up, dude. You got competition at the next division, and we can we can confidently tell you that you'll do great up there, right? That's kind of what you want to see. And when Kamaru was doing that, he wasn't going to fight Izzy at the time, but Merab is not in that predicament anymore. And the neat thing about that is that we don't have that predicament anymore because essentially Ilia Topuria has stated that he's going to move up. So if he moves up, that makes a clear pathway for Merab to become double champ at featherweight. I think it is possible. We do know that Merab walks around at the weight he cut, at the weight division that he fights in. So there is that aspect. As a matter of fact, does he want to move up? But we also do have Aljo up there, who I'm sure is trying to make a run for the belt as well. So there's that aspect. I just think Merab has the time, has the longevity to lap everyone in the bantamweight division. So after O'Malley, I think keep on going on that tour. You are gaining you are gaining momentum, and I think everyone's on that train for the most part. Now with Islam, he has beat Charles. There's really beat everyone, and I don't think there's a fighter that we can say can match Islam besides Arman. I know Dana's not a big fan of pulling out at the last minute for whatever the case may be, and a lot of people are saying that Dana wasn't particularly too happy about Arman not stepping into the octagon that night. Who knows kind of the severity of Arman's injury, but I do think Arman Tsarukyan can come back in time for Abu Dhabi and make that fight with Islam. I think Islam wants that fight just as bad now, just to kind of get that over with. So I do still think Islam's next fight is with Arman. And that's the fight that everyone wants to see. That's the fight that I want to see, and I still stand behind it. I think Arman squeezes another fight in within the next 2 or 3 months. I think we get some big news coming up, and then he gets ready for Abu Dhabi. I think that's a very high possibility. I don't see why that can't happen. So for Arman, I think he fights Charles again, or he fights somebody else. I know Michael Chandler wanted to fight him, so there is that aspect to it. I don't want to see him Michael Chandler Arman. Not a big fan of that matchup, but just because I think Arman will be too much for Michael, but I do think it would be essentially a tune-up for Arman to kind of get ready for that, because Michael's not an easy fight. It won't be an easy fight, but it'll be a very high-paced fight. So I think that's exactly what Arman needs, especially if he's injured, right? So we'll see how Arman deals with this. I think it's more of, can Arman make it enticing to make that fight again to the UFC? We'll see how that works out. I think Arman can do it. I think Arman can fight Islam, and I don't think Islam is going to take another fight if it's not with Arman. If I'm being quite honest, I don't see him fighting Charles again. I particularly don't like that matchup. Don't really care to see that again. So we'll see how that works. And with that concludes the video. I hope you guys liked all the segments. If any segment in particular that you're a real big fan, if I had to be biased, I really like the main card World Championships. I'll see how those points accumulate, and see towards the end of the year, towards the summertime, who's up top and who we see at the top at the end of the year. So that'd be crazy. UFC 311 was all in all a great event, a great start to the year, very high-paced pay-per-view. No complaints there. We'll see how all the pay-per-views lead up to it. For right now, I give it an 8 out of 10. Till next time.